How do you stay lean and shredded year round effortlessly? All right, that's a bold claim. I'm not going to say effortlessly, obviously, there's some effort to be put, but without, let's say, making it a whole high maintenance lifestyle, in terms of bulking and cutting and watching every little thing that you eat and working out for over an hour and a half and blah, blah, blah. Because here's the thing is when somebody sees a guy who looks ripped or shredded and they want to look like them, the first thing that they ask, this is what I've noticed, is what do you eat? What's your diet? And what workouts do you do for this body part or that body part or whatever? So, and obviously those things are important. I'm not saying they're not. Nutrition and exercise are important, but I also think what people fail to consider are the small things throughout the day that people do, the way that people live their lives, right? Not necessarily what they eat, but maybe how they eat, when they eat, how quickly they eat. Little things like that I'm talking about. I'm not going to get too in the weeds, but I think you catch my drift. So, when they do certain things in the day, when they sleep, how much do they move outside of just exercise, right? Not just what workouts do they do, but what are they doing throughout the actual day? How stressed are they? How do they react to things? All of these things, believe it or not, guys, has an impact on the way that you look, how shredded you stay, and how easy it is for you to stay shredded, how easy it is for your body to tap into stored body fat and all that sort of stuff. It all comes down to hormones. So if you live in accordance to your nature, and keep in mind we are synced with nature, right? That is basically how our hormones work. We release stress hormone in the morning, for example, which wakes us up. We release melatonin in the evening, which puts us to sleep. So on and so forth. So many different hormones that do so many different things. So the point I'm making is when you kind of harmonize your life to the rhythms of nature, you will find it's a lot easier to stay lean and shredded. So what do I do? I've kind of thought of all just the way that I live my life, on a daily basis and sort of weekly basis as well, and boiled down what I think are the most important things that contribute to me staying lean. So let's get into it. Number one is high stress mornings. Like I just mentioned, your body releases a lot of cortisol in the morning. That's what wakes you up, essentially, right? Stress hormone. Hormones are not bad. You see, things like stress hormone and insulin get a really bad rap because they're associated with storing fat and things like that. But we still have the hormones. Our bodies still produce them. We still need them, right? It's just all about how chronically or lack thereof they are produced, what times they're produced, and things of that nature. So you want to capitalize on this high stress morning. So when I wake up, I immediately hop in the cold plunge. I move, do some mobility. I go for a walk. I drink coffee. I do some work. The hardest part of the day for me, things that I need to do, in the morning, like that cannot be left up to chance. For example, posting content, getting back to clients on certain things, just whatever it is. Maybe even calling my bank or something. I'll just knock out something productive that I know I probably won't do later and get it out of the way, eat the frog. And then I work out. That's a high stress morning. Go, go, go. I believe that is good. People say you got to have relaxing mornings and things like that, but, I just find that you should relax at the end of the day. So I'll get into that. So you start your morning, capitalize on the fact that your body's in a stressed out state and get stuff done. Like work out, knock out the hard stuff of your day cuz guys, this is what's going to set you up for success later in the day, which helps you sleep, blah blah blah. So I'll get into that. So that's number 1, high stress mornings. Number 2 is I always earn my first meal no matter what. And when I say earn, I mean I have to work out, get my workout for the day in before I eat. Non-negotiable. This is not up for negotiation. Why? Because not because some study told me or because some influencer told me or anything like that. It's because I feel this is the most natural way to live. Again, in accordance with nature. We would have never, for the vast majority of our existence as humans on this planet, had access to food without putting forth some sort of effort, right? Nowadays, we have refrigerators and things like that. So it's easy for us to just eat without putting forth any real physical effort. And I just believe that that goes against our human nature, right? And that's what leads to you getting soft and unhealthy and your body lacking the ability to tap into its stored body fat and so on and so forth. And if you don't use it, you will lose it. So I always earn my first meal. I think that's just a rule. So it's not that I personally will like force myself into a window of intermittent fasting per se, but hey, maybe I don't get a chance to eat until 3 p.m. because I couldn't get my workout in until later, or 5 p.m., whatever it may be. So I just happen to quote unquote intermittent fast, but it's just natural, just like it would be in nature. So And I think, again, there's so many benefits that come with that, that come with fasting and blah, blah, blah. We're not going to get into that. This is, again, just a rule I live by. And maybe I eat as early as 10 a.m. just because I got my workout in early and I'm ravenously hungry. I'm not going to fight my body. So that's just a good rule that you should live by. Do not eat until you've earned it physically. Okay. And then the next rule, actually building on that rule, building on do not eat. What do you actually no? This is the next rule. Sorry for the confusion. So let's just recap so far. Rule number one: high stress mornings. Rule number two: always earn your first meal. Rule number three: what is your first meal? What do you eat when you do eat? And personally, I just have a pound of grass-fed red meat and anywhere from 4 to 6, maybe even more eggs. That's not all I eat, though. Don't get me wrong. That's just my bare minimum. That's like my non-negotiable. Call it main target every single day, right? So and then what I don't do is I don't put a cap on the quantity of food that I eat. This is highly important for staying lean, guys, contrary to common belief. People say eat less, move more. But what people fail to realize about the whole calorie counting thing is quality matters so much. Okay. People don't understand this. It's like you cannot compare McDonald's with grass fed red meat, for example. And furthermore, when you eat good food, when you give your body good fuel, you will thus have more and better energy, right? Thus, you will be more likely to move, more likely to push yourself when you work out, more likely to walk, more likely to move just little movements throughout the day that you don't even really notice, but you subconsciously just do more because you have more fuel and your body's working better because you're fueling it better. So people fail to realize that it's not just about controlling your calories like a robot. We are dynamic organisms. It's about fueling yourself properly, not restricting yourself, making sure you get at least the right amount of food in. And that's why red meat and eggs I harp on. It's not just about the protein, it's about the nutrition, the nutrients that it comes with, the matrix in which the protein comes in, the fat, the saturated fat, the cholesterol, all the B vitamins, all the little minerals and vitamins that we need that are so much of it is concentrated in these two foods, red meat and eggs. So that's why I think it's such an important base of your nutrition. And then what I do is I intuitively eat from there for the rest of the day. Um, rather, and my only rule really is that I stick to single ingredient whole foods, right? So I'm not just frivolously eating BS after I have my pound of meat and 4 to 6 eggs. I'm having fruit, maybe some vegetables, raw dairy, raw honey, things like that. And I just eat if I'm hungry. And if I'm not hungry, I don't eat. But again, I make sure I get at least that pound of meat, 4 to 6 eggs in, and I do not limit quantity. That is so important. And it's just a total paradigm shift people need to understand. It's not about controlling these little numbers, okay? It's about, again, living in accordance with your nature and feeding yourself properly, fueling your body properly, and everything falls into place after that. You're way less likely to have cravings. You're way less likely to overeat. You're like, try overeating steak and eggs, try overeating apples or bananas. It's much harder because these are more natural foods. Your body recognizes them. This is a whole podcast on its own, but we'll leave it at that. Okay, so the next rule is 10K steps a day. All right. I said don't track numbers, but but I just happen to have a little wearable on me, a little watch that tells me how many steps I get in a day. And I just make sure I get at least 10K. And to me, it's really, that happens without me trying. It's not like I have to try to do it. I just scope my watch at the end of the day, make sure I'm there, and boom, we're good. I have a dog, so that makes it very easy. I walk my dog a few times a day. So if you don't have a dog, get a dog. If you find it hard to get your steps in, get a dog. And not only that, guys, that's not really the rule here. The rule here is little micro movements. Let's call them. And let's call them non-exercise movement. Okay, non-exercise movement. That's part. 10K steps is part of that. But what else is part of that is the other things that I do during the day, the things that I preach to you guys about on Instagram and TikTok and whatnot, and YouTube Shorts. It's things like hanging. I hang for at least 4 to 5 minutes a day total. Not all at once, but total. That's, little micro movements. That gets I'm sweating by the time I drop from the bar. My body's heated up. Going on the walks with my dog, doing the suitcase carries I tell you guys about, the kettlebell carries. Maybe I'll do a few of those. Maybe I'm sending feedback to clients. I send video feedback to my clients, giving them critique on their form, their kettlebell form. And, I send feedback to 4 to 5 clients. After that, it's already been a mini workout right there, So it's these little micro movements that really set you up for success. So for you, that could be, taking a walk at lunch during work, doing some pull-ups, at lunch during work, little things that don't necessarily have to be like your workout, but they're just little like parts of your day that are kind of tonic, like the type of movement that has a tonic effect that gives you energy, not zaps your energy. So non-exercise movements, let's just call it. And again, I'm trying to give you guys some better examples of this, but really walking is like the best thing, walking, carrying things. I don't know, just like all these little movements, even Andrew Huberman talks a lot about this too. This isn't something, again, I make sure that I do. But again, when you eat well, you have a lot of energy, you sleep well, you will maybe just move more naturally. Maybe you fidget a little bit more. Your body just has more energy to move. So these little micro movements, call it non-exercise movement, super important. Okay, but a good way again to measure that is just make sure you get at least 10,000 steps a day. Um, and then this is the nighttime routine now. Okay, so let's go over everything real quick. Okay, so I'm throwing a lot at you guys. So rule number 1, high stress mornings. Rule number 2, earn your first meal always. Rule number 3, pound of red meat, grass-fed red meat, 4 to 6 eggs, no limit on quantity. Rule number 4, non-exercise movement, at least 10,000 steps a day. And then rule number 5, this will also kind of place a control on the way you eat as well, guys, right? So again, I'm not counting my calories or all that, but I have my sort of main target, the red meat and eggs that I eat, no limit on quantity, but I do earn my first meal, right? So that's one thing that's kind of a control. I'm only eating single ingredient whole foods outside of the red meat and eggs, obviously. And then finally, this new rule that I'm going to say is we stop eating 2 to 3 hours before we go to bed. Super important, guys. Super, super important. Just try it, okay? I'm not going to get into all of this. We can dive deeper in later podcasts because this is a whole nother podcast on its own if I start diving into this of why you should stop eating 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. But long story short, you will sleep so much better. If you don't believe me, try it tonight. Just try it. Stop eating 3 hours before you go to bed. If you have a Whoop strap or an Aura ring or something that tracks your sleep, you will see the results. I promise. Give it a shot. And then finally, not finally, actually, there's some more to talk about. So stop eating 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. Next rule is I always stretch in the evenings. All right. And it could be anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes, just depending on how I'm feeling that night. But I always stretch. I always just do a few different postures, and I can make a video on that as well. Another video, if you guys want, comment that below. I can make a little stretching routine for you guys, but I do just a mini routine, just kind of go through my hips, twist my spine, reach forward, bend backward, do all the little things, but I do it in a very like passive and relaxing way versus like a dynamic and mobility sort of way. So it's kind of like a therapeutic deep breathing practice that I have while I'm stretching and letting my muscles relax, which puts you in that parasympathetic state and again will help you sleep better because guys, you've heard this before, but sleep is everything. Sleep is everything. It's so important to staying lean, especially. But it's not just as easy as saying sleep better. It's also setting yourself up to sleep better, which these two rules do really well. Stop eating and start stretching. Okay, that's huge because you'll find too you'll naturally want to go to bed a little earlier because you're not going to want to stay up into the night as you get hungrier and hungrier. So that 2 to 3 hour rule holds you accountable in that sense. Sleep is a whole other thing. We can get into that in a different podcast as well. But these two rules will really help you sleep a lot better. And then the final sort of daily rule, guys, that I think really helps me stay lean, we'll recap all of them again, but this is a daily thing, is meditation, ending the day. So stop eating 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed, stretch, and meditate. Okay, and when I meditate, again, this is a whole other topic. This is so complex, a lot to get into. I've been doing this for over a decade, and I've learned so much with my call it meditation practice, but I simply just do this, guys. And if you want me to get into this more, just let me know. I would love to make a video on this because most people don't understand that like things like meditation, guys, have such a huge impact on how your body looks, how easy it is for you to stay shredded, things like that. Again, separate topic, but for example, when I used to do a lot of jujitsu, I found that when I meditated before I went to class versus when I did something physical, let's say like a mini little kettlebell warm up before I went to class, the meditation would serve me better in my jujitsu roles. I would be more lucid. I would get less tired. I would move better. And it's, again, such a deep topic to get into, guys, but meditation is so underrated for what it does for your brain, your nervous system, and then in turn, how you sleep, how you react to things, how much stress hormone you produce, how much other hormones you produce. Like it has so many implications. And the more that you can keep yourself in this kind of calm state, keep your heart rate low throughout the day, resting heart rate low, keep yourself in a low stress state, the easier it will be for you to stay lean, which is, again, why it's so important to have high stress mornings, because this sets you up to wind down and relax throughout the day. Because if you get all your stuff done in the morning, get your workout done, all that stuff, productivity, all that stuff, it's easier for you to do these things in the evening. You don't have things on your mind. You don't feel guilty for not getting your workout in. You're not cramming your workout in and waking yourself up right before you go to bed by doing a hard workout and things like that. I always say it's always good to work out whenever you can and just get it in consistently. But if you can work out in the morning, it's far better for you overall. Because again, it's about aligning yourself with nature. We can't escape nature, guys. I think another thing, like humans nowadays, we think that we can kind of create our own environments. Like, oh, I'm a night owl. I'm this. I'm that. It's like, no, you're not. We're humans and we live kind of in accordance with the sun and the laws of nature and the clock of nature. And our body is attuned to that clock. And when you don't live in harmony with that clock, you're always going to lose to the person who does. So you can go ahead and do your thing, but I will keep living in harmony with the clock of life, the universal clock of nature. So those are all the daily ones, guys. Last thing I'll touch on is kind of a couple important weekly habits I think I have, which is number one, I have a big eating day. And number two, I have a long fasting day. Well, I can get more into these as well if you guys want. But long story short, I have one day out of the week where I do whatever the hell I want. Maybe I eat out. Maybe I drink some alcohol. Maybe I cook myself some homemade whatever I'm craving that day. Whatever the hell I want, I feed my soul. I do that once a week, but no more. Once a week. And then, but I also do a long fast once a week, at least 24 hours. Sometimes up to 36 hours, sometimes more, but at least 24 hours once a week, every single week. And again, that's a whole other topic to get into and a whole other podcast to have. But I truly believe, God, I've been living this way for like 10 years now. And I've continuously been getting stronger. My performance has been getting better. I've never felt better in my life. I'm in pinnacle peak physical condition. I'm also in the prime of my life. I'm 30 years old, so there's that. But again, I've never been in this kind of shape. Like I've been a young 20-year-old. Like I've spent most of my years being in pain and not feeling comfortable in my body, and I've never felt better, guys, and it's never felt easier. So I hope this helps you all. If you want more guidance, check out the description below where you can join my school community where I have full programs, full community. I'm on there holding weekly live classes, all that sort of stuff. Or you can apply to work with me one-on-one. And I'm also going to be selling my own line of kettlebells and battle bells, which are specialty maces. And those will be coming soon. People in my community and my one-on-one clients will have first access and discounts to that. So make sure you hop in there if you're interested in that, or just stay tuned and snatch up the equipment when it comes. I appreciate you guys for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Peace.